Good afternoon, Assistant Mayor, Board of Directors, and City Manager Dr. Haskins. Thank you for taking the time to attend this lot fee consolidation workshop and look at the Texarkana Old Police Pension Fund today. I'm hopeful that today, regardless of any decisions made, you gain a better understanding of our pension fund. Our plan is not currently actuarially sound. So exactly how did we get here? The state of Arkansas passed legislation in 1983 that mandated that all new police officers and firefighters enroll in LOPFI, a statewide pension plan for all new police officers and firefighters. The legislative goal was obvious. Many municipalities were having trouble funding their plans and paying benefits out of their local budgets. The new legislation allowed the city of Texarkana an opportunity at the time to cover not only new officers, but also cover existing members of their current pension plan for police and fire already on the payroll. The city of Texarkana elected to cover only new hires going forward in 1983. I believe this was simply a business decision based on the difference in the old police plan pension retirement match and the lot fee retirement match at the time, which was higher. Old plan officers in 1983 and up until the last one retired, which was me, were matched by the city at 6% of salary, and new hire officers at lot fee rate in 83, I believe, was around 10.5%, give or take. I know it's about twice that right now. One of the problems with this decision was, in essence, it closed the old plan's revenue from retirement contributions of any officers hired after 1983. We became a closed plan. And as time went on and officers that retired or left were replaced by new lot fee covered officers, the revenue stream from the employee match continued to decline. Our plan currently has around 40 officers and retired spouses with a plan valuation of around $4.6 million. We have 9 members between the age 55 and 64, 25 members between age 65 and 74, 6 between the ages of 75 and 85. 31 of the plan members are retired. 4 of the plan members are retired disabled officers, and we have 5 surviving spouses of officers that have passed. We pay just a tad over $1 million in benefits each year to our members. The consolidation report that we receive from LOPFI is long and complex, and David Clark in Tyranda can answer the more detailed questions. I read both it and the state actuary report last night. There's a lot of stuff in there. I'm asking the board to consider LOPFI consolidation with the same 3% COLA enjoyed by LOPFI officers in police and fire departments if the city can afford it. It comes with a cost. Most things do. But at the end of the 20-year LOPFI consolidation payout, the city retains the $1 million of property tax that can be used to offset future LOPFI costs for police officers on staff at the end of the consolidation payments. There will be real value in those additional tax dollars coming to the city in 20 years. Tyranda can give you a better estimate of what a millage is now and what a millage could be projected to be 20 years from now if we consolidate at the end of the last payment. In closing, after all presentations, the most important question you will be asking the finance director, I'm sure, is how much is it going to cost and how are we going to pay for it? I would suggest the cost of consolidation be absorbed into the police department's budget, but that's just my opinion only, and there may be other routes available. On a personal note, these are challenging times for city government and the delivery of city services. I'm very appreciative of the working relationship with our board of trustees on the pension plan, the city manager who serves as chairman of the pension fund, and the support of the board members who every year have given us additional funds to help prop up our pension plan. Assistant Mayor and Board of Directors, Dr. Haskins, to Rhonda, Mr. David Clark, thank you for your time. And I tried to be brief because I know everybody's time is precious.
Thank you, Glenn. I think it's probably appropriate now for Mr. Clark to now step up and start making his presentation regarding the request for deliberations.
I would
David?
certainly agree with that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is David Clark. I don't know if anybody has video or not. I'm logged in with video and then also dialing in on the phone. Is the audio okay for everybody? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. First off, thank you all for the opportunity to be able to visit with you today. I want to say that Glenn's report was phenomenal. That was, I think he hit on all the points accurately, give you guys the history as far as how the local plan has evolved over the years and why it's at a position today as we sit in 2020 looking at potentially consolidating or assigning administration of the plan over to LOPFI. By that action, you guys may recall a couple of years ago that the city consolidated the local fire pension fund for Texarkana and handed off administration to LOPFI. So this is something that the city has been through in the past, and LOPFI currently administers 223 local plans from around the state, one of those, of course, being Texarkana Fire. And there are still 63 locally administered plans around the state, one of those being Texarkana Police. And the process for consolidation, what it will do is, if the city approves, obviously, it takes not only the city action, but the local board of trustees will pass a resolution first saying that they want to consolidate. Then the city decides yes or no, and they'll pass an ordinance if the answer is yes. And then that allows the city manager to enter into an agreement with LOPFI to hand off all the assets and then the administrative responsibilities to LOPFI. And as Glenn mentioned a moment ago, is that there are 40 benefit recipients for the local plan. So there's a number of people that are touched by this pension plan and rely heavily on the benefits. By consolidating, the city, it will make the actuarially required contributions each and every month for whatever amortization period the city chooses, be that 15-year or 20-year. I'm getting the impression that the consideration is probably going to be with a 20-year amortization schedule. And what's nice about this is that between Glenn and the Board of Trustees and then the City Board of Directors over the years, this is something that Glenn touched on a moment ago as well, is additional monies have been deposited into the pension plan by the city. And that has made a significant difference as far as the funded status, the solvency of the plan, and quite frankly, the ability to reasonably consider a consolidation. Because the evaluation that we performed actually shows that there are enough revenues coming in right now to fully fund the first year's annual cost of a consolidation, whether you went with the cost of living adjustment added to the plan structure or not. Actually, for 2018 and 2019, the revenues exceeded the first year's cost by right about $40,000 each year. That is a position that few cities are in, meaning that the revenues often do not exceed the projected cost. So that's a great position, and quite frankly, that is, as I mentioned a moment ago, the product of the local board of trustees and the city board of directors working together. It's amazing what can happen whenever there's sufficient revenues that come into a local plan, and this shows exactly what has happened. Another thing that continues for the local plan is, and Tyrone is aware of this, is that there is an additional funding vehicle that comes into the pension plan. It's called additional allocation. And because of the actions of the local board and then the city board of directors, over the last 8 years, there's been almost $400,000 in additional revenues that have come in and been deposited to the plan as an asset because of additional allocation. that has occurred because the city has made the necessary contributions. So in other words, they increased the amount of contributions coming into the local plan such that it triggered eligibility for additional allocation. So again, hats off to you guys for what you've done. If we want to consolidate this year, we are coming up on a deadline to be able to use this year's annual or actuarial valuation. It's still doable. We have enough time, but we have to have everything as far as the initial paperwork completed by October 30th. Obviously, that's next month. And there's some documents that I would get in your hands if that was the desire of the local board and then, of course, the city board of directors. But that's a quick flyover as far as consolidation. You know that you've already been through this in the past with your local fire plan. And now you have the opportunity, if you choose to move forward with the police plan, knowing that you have sufficient revenues to make the employer contributions. Mr. Chairman, I'll hand it back to you at this point.
Thank you, David. I would like, real quickly here for us to look at the different options that we have, and I believe there are two potential options. I think there is one option joining that would suggest that there's a zero COLA. And I believe the second option, which is the preferable option, from the PRB board, that there is a 3% COLA. Am I correct on that, David, Glenn?
Yes,
Yes,
sir. That's my understanding.
Okay.
From this side.
Yes. So I guess we can start with option number one. What would it cost the city annually if the board were to choose option number one?
Okay, I'll take, Mr. Chairman, I can take that one for you if you want. If you went with the 20-year amortization, the first year employer contribution cost, which when I say first year, that would be 2021, that calendar year. And so that would be without a cost of living adjustment. The annual cost is $449,124.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And real quickly, Taronda, how much would that cost the city?
Actually, if we were to use the 20-year consolidation method with a 0% COLA, when you take into consideration the revenue that would be moved from the old plan into the city's general fund, it actually would save the city over the course of 20 years about $2 million.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, wow. So if we join the lofty plan, if we were to take option one, and we were to transfer those funds over to the general fund and use that money to offset, the ability to join Lofty, we're looking at a potential savings. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's just option one. But now, David, let's look at the preferable option by the PRB board. That would be the 3%.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, and just so everybody understands, whenever the chairman's saying PRB board, he's referring to the local board of trustees.
Yes.
And so the 20-year amortization with a 3% cost of living, that first year cost for the calendar year of 2021 is $653,412.
Okay. Okay. Okay, and I guess I'll go to Taronda again to make sure that we can quantify that in terms of transferable funds into the general fund with a 3% COLA, and what would that net or require the city to pay?
Yes, sir. The city, with that one, it would cost the city an additional $3.6 million over the course of the 20 years.
Okay. Okay.
Could we repeat that question? I couldn't hear it. I'm sorry.
Okay. The question was simply, we're looking at option 3, Assistant Mayor Teeters. I'm sorry, option number 2, which is a 3%
Gotcha.
COLA request. And I think Taronda was basically answering that question. If we were to consolidate with Lofty with a 3% COLA, it would cost the city apparently 3.6 million over a 20.
Over a 20-year period.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
I think someone was talking after that, and that's the one that was very
okay.
muffled in what I couldn't hear.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I did hear Taronda. Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Haskin.
And I think we also have Rick Inslee on board as well. Rick, we'd like for you to share your thoughts as well, being a long-term or a long-time member of this board. So you have the floor, Rick.
Dr. Haskins, were you talking to me?
No, I was talking to Rick
That's what
Inslee.
I thought. Okay, I was waiting for Rick to
Yes.
answer, just to make sure.
Yes, I'm sorry, Glenn. Can you hear us, Rick?
Hey, doctor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if this is Rick, I'm having a little problem hearing, but I think you asked me something.
Yes. I know you've been on this board for quite some time, and I was just going to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts as well about the potential transfer into Lofty. And, whether you favor it, don't favor it.
Okay, Dr. Haskins,
Can you hear me now?
yes, sir. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Dr. Haskins,
Yes, sir.
can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I think you asked me, did you basically ask me my input concerning the
Yes.
consolidation?
Yes.
Okay, doctor, I've worked on my computer. Am I clear now?
Yes, sir. You're clear.
Okay, if you were asking me concerning the consolidation, is that correct?
That is correct, Rick.
Okay. I'm, let's say for some reason, the audible, I am having very great difficulty with it. You may want to address the question to someone that you can hear clearly.
Okay.
We hear you completely clearly.
Yes, we're here. We can hear you.
Okay. Concerning the consolidation, doctor, I mean, we have, we've had numerous meetings. I do know that everyone involved would be in support of it. We also understand first and foremost what the city has done for us in the past. It has been above and beyond anything that we would have expected or asked the city to do. But we are asking at this time, on behalf of ourselves and our spouses, that we could really take a deep, deep look at becoming involved with Lofty.
Okay.
Our board members are, we're aging. We continue to have a board. At some point, we're not even going to have the members to support a local pension board. And I think, if I understand correctly, that we are basically turned over to Lofty at that point. But if I have semi-answered your question, it would be in our best interest, but it needs to be in the best interest of the city. Like I say, cities are struggling, but we would greatly like to look at this as hard as possible to see if it could be done. From my standpoint, who would not want a cost of living? If that's possible, we would love to have a cost of living because our pensions have been locked in for years. There's now, again, Glenn has been able, we've had some state turn back funds and some different things which have helped greatly, but moving forward, a cost of living would be a great thing. And we represent much, much older members than us. There's guys that's been on this plan for 20 years, and at the time they retired, salaries were very minimal. And I don't see how they get by. A 3% cost of COLA, even though it's not a lot, would be a great, great benefit to the older members of this plan and their surviving spouses. I hope I've answered your question. I apologize. I cannot hear you clearly.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I have one question real quickly for David. David, if the city were to take some action at some point, what are the enrollment schedules like? Is there a time period, an enrollment time period, beginning and end?
I'm not sure I totally follow when you say
Well,
enrollment, can you help me with that?
Yeah, if at some point the city decided to consolidate with Lofty, is there an enrollment time period for that consolidation to take place? Or can the city
Very
just
good.
enroll at any point in the future?
Yes, sir. Yeah, very good. Yes. If for this year, it's October 30th, the 30th of October happens to be the last day or last business day of the month. But if the city said, well, we're not quite sure that we want to do that in this year, then yes, the process can start next year, where we do another valuation and analyze the cost and then provide that to you.
Okay.
And
and
that actually start April 1.
Okay.
Dr. Haskins, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Why the jump from 0% COLA to 3%? What happened to 1% and 2%?
Okay. Good question.
No.
David, can you help us with that?
Yes, sir, I sure can. Yeah, the 3% is the standard cost structure that we provide in the valuations. We can cost a 1% or a 2% COLA, but that was not part of the valuation request. And so we simply costed it at 3%. That, by the way, is the same level that Glenn had mentioned that the LAFI members have, and also the Texarkana Local Fire Pension Fund. When it consolidated, it has a 3% COLA as well.
And I'm understanding that now, but as I understand it, the finances for the police weren't like they were for the firefighters when they came on board in 2016. And when I joined the board in 2000, well, whenever Linda and I came on board, we were put on the retirement pension plan. And so we've learned a lot, and we've learned a lot about how insufficient these plans look going into the future. And our first question, after our first meeting with the actuaries and listening to where everybody stood, Tapers, Lofty, the other one, we said, how do we get our police on Lofty? Because they should have come on. I don't know, I don't know, they should have come on. So for 4 years, it seems like that was heard, and the city's been doing whatever they can to get the police on Lofty, because that is the most dependable plan at this point. But now whether we go with the 3%, from 0 to 3%, after all we've been doing to supplement the old plan, I'm not sure about that, and I would want to see the 1% and the 2% cost.
Certainly. No, I understand that.
Very good question, and not a bad request.
And if I could ask one question as well, I know if we log in to the 20% amortization table on this, if we could only afford to do it at 0 or 1% for now, could we adjust that perhaps in a 3-year time frame when we are more financially stable? And could we change it to 3% at that time? Or are we locked in at that COLA for what we go with in the beginning? Or can we change that?
Another great question. David, can you fill that in for us?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I sure can. And actually, that's a really good question. No, the benefits as far as the COLA would not be locked in as far as if you came in. Let's just say that right now the city said that they're willing to consolidate this year, 2020. In other words, start administration January of 2021. And right now there's no COLA, so it's 0%, but they want to cost what a 1% would be for the following year, for example. And then the numbers came out okay, and then the city said, okay, in 2 more years, we want to look at what could we do to go to a 2% COLA, and then do the same thing until you got to 3%. That's completely within the city's purview to do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Because I mean, I like option 1 because we can afford it right now. I would love for our retired police and their surviving spouses, I would love to give them 3%. And maybe that's something that
Sure.
we can look at within the near future.
But we also know, Linda, about tapers and how much they're needing to be put in per year to keep them solvent. And
Exactly.
so we have to think about all of that when we're making that decision, I think, Dr. Haskins. And
No
that's where I'm coming
question
from.
about it. I mean, we all take a holistic review when we're looking at these pension plans, and it's just unfortunate that both plans, quite frankly, have just been insolvent for a long time now, and it's good that both the tapers and the old police pension plan, that we're reviewing those and looking at ways on how to sustain those plans over time. So this has been a really, really good review. Those have been excellent questions. And I guess now we'll go over to Glenn for some additional add-ins and questions if he has anything remaining.
Thank you, Dr. Haskins.
Mhm.
I don't really have a lot to add. We've had some really good questions from the board members, and they're all important. I think at the end of the day, the bottom line is, where does the $3.6 million come from? One of the questions that I was not aware of, Tyronda, do the assets of the pension plan, if we start down this road, transfer to the city general fund? Is that what I
No,
heard?
sir. All of the assets will transfer to LOCFI, and all of the assets were part of that initial valuation. Now, what doesn't transfer to LOCFI are the things like the millage rate, some of the additional funding that we have received. Those will all transfer to the city's general fund, and those were all included in that $3.6 million calculation.
Right. Now, if I understand LOCFI consolidation correctly, and this would be a question for Mr. Clark, if you enter in at a 3% COLA, as you step into it, and I'm looking at the graph here, it costs you less at the start, but about 8 or 9 years out, it gets pretty stout. Is that correct?
Which graph are you looking at? Can you point my nose to that one?
The amortization and the amount of money needed from the city each year.
Yeah,
Don't
no, I think it's important.
lot fees start out lower in the first few years, and then as you progress towards the end of the 20, they become more.
The contributions do increase over time. That is correct. Now, one thing to consider, though, is that the valuation that we performed that we're looking at today, next year's valuation will produce different results because we're going to have different investment return numbers to look at because we're 1 year removed. We'll have different assets for the local plan depending on how the investment perform for 2020 for the local plan. So I think it's important for everybody on this call to understand that each year the numbers are going to adjust as we go out. We may have, and not to be morbid, but we may have several people pass away that's, what we had anticipated in the valuation, they might live longer. That takes cost pressures off. And so then that all adjusts the numbers. That's why we're going to continue to do annual valuations for the local plan, just like we do for the LOPI plan right now for the city. And we can adjust on a going forward basis if we do have increased mortality, if we do have stronger investment performance. Now, conversely, if we have underperformance on our investments, we have to also factor that in, and that does affect costs. But I think it's important for everybody to remember, one of my comments at the top of this meeting was that the revenues coming in from the millage, from premium tax, from the added contributions that the city has put in, they're actually exceeding, thankfully, they're exceeding the first year's projected cost, even if you came in with a 3% COLA. Now, that's a one-year snapshot, obviously, so we know that those numbers too can move around. But you guys are in a position that few pension plans are in and few cities are in, and that your revenues are actually exceeding your projected costs.
Board members, I don't really have a lot more to add. It basically boils down to, you know, the money. I think I would have a hard time selling a COLA of 1% to our members. I think they probably would rather just proceed with how we're doing. Now, something that David Clark just told each of you is pretty important. Every year we get a actuary report from the state. Right now, we're paying out just a little less than we're taking in, and that's a good thing. They're in the actuary report that Taronda gets and the manager gets and I get. In the first couple of pages, there's a box called crossover point, and on the crossover point, you know, that tells you whether or not you're going to deplete your assets. The plan is not going to deplete its assets. There was a time 10 or 12 years ago when the state actuary came down, and for about 2 years, we were on the list from the PRB of a plan that was scheduled to deplete its assets. I didn't like being on the board at that time. I lost a couple of board of trustees because they didn't want to be held responsible for the plan going belly up, and we persevered. The actuary at that time had recommended that the city put in $200,000 to $250,000. We arrived at $100,000, and if we don't go forward with doing anything, each year when you prepare your budget, if we could get a slight increase over and above that $100,000, that would help. And I'm not talking about going from 100 to 150 or 200, but if we could program in maybe an additional 5% to that 100,000 going forward and come back and revisit this. This is a tough call. It's essentially $3.6 million is what, about $180,000 in additional money you guys have got to put out. You still got to ask yourself, where does it come from? And I can't make that decision for you, but I am appreciative of the fact that you came today to learn and you know what the problem is. Thank you very much.
Dr. Haskins, if I may, just listening to Glenn. So if we don't do anything, if like he says, they'd rather remain on the old plan. Is that going to save us money letting them remain on the old plan?
I mean, probably we're probably going to be in the same shape that we are today, quite frankly. In terms of saving money, probably not. You know, I don't see us saving anything if we continue down the same road that we are right now.
What are your concerns?
Well, I mean, obviously, my concerns would always be, you know, long term in terms of trying to ensure sustainability in not only this plan, but also in the TAPERS plan.
Well, I heard Glenn say, and I think we all heard him say, that that was not a concern, that it was going to be able to pay for itself, the old plan.
Well, I mean, that's certainly our hope and certainly our projection. But as David pointed out, things change. So we don't know what that's going to look like 5, 10, 15 years down the road. I mean, we can project out, but you can never, ever be able to make that call.
Right. And
Maybe
for example,
nothing's happening to the stock market. If we go
Right.
through another deal like we did in 2009, the assets wouldn't be there. But as we are now, we've got just a little bit more coming in.
Right, and I think that's very dependent on who's elected in November, if that remains the same, Glenn. But I'm sorry, Linda, what were you saying? Did I interrupt?
oh no, I was kind of just saying what you were. That my issue with staying on the old plan is the fact that there's only 40 people there. I teach statistics. And so when there's thousands of people in a plan, you can hit highs and lows and it levels out.
Right.
But when there's only 40 on a plan and we know that's going to be decreasing, then one big bump in the road and there goes a lot of your money. And so that's my concern with staying with the old pension plan is
And that's what the
the
actuaries
laws of
told us.
statistics hold when your population's only 40. The laws of statistics hold when your population's hundreds and thousands. But you really don't have a lot of faith and stability when your population's only 40. One major thing could happen and it could wipe it out because there's only 40 people in it. That's my main concern. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, and that's the point. I mean, it's still unpredictable. I mean, you really never know, to your point. So I mean, obviously, we've got, I guess now we have 3 opportunities to look at things. 1, stay in the old plan. 2, option 2 would be to merge with Lotfi with a 0 COLA, and option 3 would be to merge with Lotfi with a 3% COLA.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, David. Yes.
That's all right. No, there's a little bit of a lag, I think, on my phone here. Sorry about that.
Yes.
This is David again for everybody. One thing that you may consider, and I'm not sure if this is agreeable with the local board, is that because I think the points that the directors have brought up as far as the uncertainty with the future, with a smaller group of people, what's going to happen in November. I mean, these are all real concerns, I think, that are really important to have out on the table for everybody to hear. You guys are bringing up very good points. You could consider another alternative, and that is consolidating, presumably with a 20-year amortization schedule, without a COLA, and then the city making a commitment inside their ordinance, enacting this provision, by the way, to do a periodic review, such as every X number of years, you look at the feasibility of implementing a cost of living at that point. That's something that we've had one of our cities here, actually right here in Little Rock, they did that a few years ago with their police plan. And they did the same thing with their fire plan, actually, a couple of years after that consolidation. So that's always an option there. And that would bring some stability to the assets because, obviously, Lotfi's at $2.5 billion. We're able to access a little bit different, investment arena.
Sure.
And with diversification. So that's an option to consider, too.
Wow. Interesting. So thank you, David. That point well taken. Let me just think this over for a minute out loud. Now, if some action at some time in the future were to be taken, it would require the local pension board to support, the move. Am I correct in that, David?
Yes, sir, you are correct.
Okay. And then at that point, it graduates to the board level, and then the board would be required to take some action. Okay. So we have a two-pronged approach to this moving forward. Okay.
Haskin?
Yes, please.
I just want to add one additional piece of information that may also be very valuable in this situation. And David, please correct me if I'm wrong, but at the point that we don't have enough board members that are willing to be on that board, at that time, would Lotfi simply take over the plan? if there aren't enough local pension board members.
And Tyrone, I really appreciate that question. And just and I know how you meant the takeover aspect, just so everybody understands, Lot B never takes over a plan. It's always the action of the city handing off administration to Lot B. However, to your point, you are correct that by state law, when the number of members, and it's actual, not the benefit recipients as far as the survivors, but the actual members drops below 5, then at that point, law stipulates that the city shall assign administration to Lot B. So there is a point at which in the future down the road, hopefully for the people on the call here, many, many, many years, because that means people will live longer, it is that there will be an action to assign administration, to Lot B if it doesn't consolidate between now and that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. I'll tell you what, this has been a very, 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 very important, efficient, and cross-training meeting for all above, I believe. And I just want to commend the board members for a lot of the great questions that they ask, a lot of great recommendations moving forward. David Clark, obviously, in his commentary and recommendations and suggestions. And of course, Glenn, who's quite frankly the godfather of the local board and's been holding it up for quite some time. And as always, Rick contributing his comments and his support for moving forward. So we have a lot to, I guess, digest and take under advisement, I believe, from a board perspective. And what we will do is, Glenn, if you don't mind, if you can potentially go back to the local board and start having some of these conversations with them about some of the things that we discussed in this workshop, and maybe come to some sort of resolution within the group if you can, and we'll look at maybe convening at some time in the future and discussing your recommendations. Okay.
Be happy to do that. Dr.
Wonderful. I just appreciate everybody again, Taronda, Sheena, everybody that participated in this workshop. Again, it's actually been well planned and much needed, I think, in a long time in coming. So board members, thank you again for participating. I guess we'll go ahead and close out for now. And everything that we've discussed today, certainly I know the board's going to take it under advisement.
Thank you, good members.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Bye.